So this is part 2 of the Crochet Monokini tutorial. So this is what you should have so far, and I'm just going to jump straight into the next row. So I'm just chaining out 3 and then placing a shell in the shell beneath it. And just in case you need to be reminded of what a shell is, it's just 3 double crochets. And there's the third one, and then you're chaining 2 and then placing 3 more double crochets in the same loop. So once you're finished with the first shell, you're chaining 2 and then going straight into the next lower shell and placing another shell. So that's 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. And then chain out 4, and you're connecting this into the smallest loop beneath it with a single crochet. And then chain out 4 more. And then this will bring you to the center of the bikini, and you are placing a shell in the first shell in the center. Then chain out 2 more, and then you're going directly into the middle loops, into the very first loop and connecting it with a single crochet. And then you're chaining 3 and then connecting it to the very next loop with a single crochet. And you're going to continue that pattern all the way across the little loops in the very center. So once you finish with that, you are just going to continue the same pattern as the beginning of the bikini row. So you just chain out 2 and then place a shell. And then once you're finished with that, chain out 4. And then you're going to connect that with a single crochet into the small loop beneath it. And then chain out the rest and finish the last 2 shells. So then just flip it over and chain 3 to start the row. You are doing the same exact pattern as beneath it. So you're just doing 2 shells, chaining 2 in between the 2 shells. And then you're going to chain out a total of 4 and then connect that into the very next shell directly beneath it. So that's 3 double crochets, chaining 2, and 3 more double crochets. So then to reach the middle loops of the bikini, chain out 4 again, and you're going to connect it with a single crochet and then chaining 3 and connecting it to the very next one with a single crochet and continuing that until you finish the middle loops. So then continuing the same pattern as the beginning of the row, you're going to chain 4 and place another shell in the very next shell in the row beneath, and then chain 4 and go straight across into the very next shell, chain 2, and then place the last shell. So you should get that when you finish. And then flip it over, and this next row is going to be a little bit different. You are going to place a shell in the very first shell beneath as usual, chain 2, and then this is where it changes. Instead of placing a shell in the very next shell, you are only going to place a total of 3 double crochets. So once you have the 3 double crochets, you're going to chain 2 and then go into the very next shell, and in this shell you are going to place another total of 3 double crochets. So it should look something like that. So then chain out 4 and then go directly into the center little loops and connect it with a single crochet, and you are continuing this as usual, chaining 3 and connecting with 1 single crochet. So then chain out another 4 and then go into the next shell beneath, and in this one we are again going to only be placing a total of 3 double crochets. So then chain 2, place another 3 double crochets in the very next shell, So a total of 3, then chain 2, and then finish the last shell in the last shell beneath it. So once you finish the row, just flip it over and chain 3. You are going to be placing a shell in the very first shell beneath. So once you have the first shell of the row, so just chain 2, and then you're going to be placing a shell in the space in between the 2 3 double crochets that we created. So in that space in between those, you are going to be placing 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. So then once you have that, chain 4 and then go directly into the middle loops and connect it with a single crochet. And finish the loops chaining 3 in between each. So then once you have that, you are going to continue the same pattern as the first half of the row. I'm going to skip through it. You're going to chain 4, place a shell in between those 2 3 double crochets, chain 2, place the last shell. So then flip it over to begin the next row. You're chaining 3 and then placing another basic shell in the very first shell beneath. Chain 2, and then you're going to be placing a shell in the shell beneath as well. So then this time you're going to be chaining out 5 and then connecting it to the center loops with a single crochet. Then chain out 3 and connect it to the very next one as usual. And then again you will be chaining out 5 and then connecting it to the next shell with another shell. And then just go ahead and finish the row as usual. So once you're finished, flip it over and chain 3 to start on the next row. So again, we're going to be placing a shell in the shell beneath it, so I just went ahead and skipped ahead. Chain out 3 more, and then place 1 more shell in the very next shell beneath it. So again, I'm going to skip through that because it gets pretty repetitive. This part, you're going to chain out 6, and then connect it with a single crochet, and you're going to be placing that in the lower loop, so you're going to place it in the tiniest loop that's beneath it, again with a single crochet. And then to complete the row, chain out 6 again, and then you're going to do the same pattern as the beginning. Place 2 shells in the last 2 shells beneath it. So once you're finished, just flip it over and chain out another 3. You're going to be placing a shell in the very first shell. I skipped it. Then you're going to chain out 3 more and place another shell. So I skipped it again. So then chain out another 6, and you're going to be jumping straight across the middle and directly into the next shell. So then just place the last 2 shells of the row. And once you're finished, flip it over and chain 3. You're going to place a shell in the first lower shell. And then this changes a little bit. You're going to chain 3, and in this shell, instead of placing another shell, you are going to be placing 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 more double crochets, and then chain an additional 2, and then place 2 more double crochets. So you're going to create that like weird fan pattern, so you'll have 2 spaces in this shell. And then all you're going to do is chain across. So you're going to chain out 6 and then go directly into the next shell beneath it, and again you're going to be placing the 2 spaced shell pattern. So chain 2 in between each 2 double crochets. And then once you are finished with this, chain out 3 more and then finish the last shell. And then once you are finished, flip it over and chain 3. So here you're going to place a shell in the very first shell again, chain out another 3, and in the very first space of the 2 spaced shell, you're going to be placing a regular shell in that space. And then directly into the second space, you're going to place another shell. So once you're finished with that, you're going to chain across. So that's another 6, and then you're going to do the same pattern. So I'm going to skip through it of chaining the 3 shells at the very end. So once you're finished, flip it over and chain 3, and then place another shell in the first shell, chain out an additional 3, place another shell in the first space. Well, actually that's a shell now, so place another shell in the lower shell, and then chain out 2, and then place a shell in the next shell. This part of the bikini gets really repetitive, so I hope it's okay that I'm kind of skipping through it. You're basically just going to be continuing these shells until you get the length you want. So there I just chained out 4, and you're going to finish the row of shells, chaining 2 between those, chaining 3 between the last shell. So once you flip it over, just chain out 3 to begin the next row, and you're going to be placing a shell in the first shell beneath, and then chain out 4, and then place another shell in the next space, and then you're going to be chaining 2 and placing another shell, and you're going to be doing the same pattern. So you're going to chain out 3 and then continue onto the other side. I am going to stop here, but if you have a longer torso or need your bikini to be longer, just continue that same pattern until it's long enough. But keep in mind, you do want it to be a little bit stretched when you wear it so that it's not so loose. So you're just going to finish that, and then once I am finished with this row, I am just cutting it and making a little knot at the very end. And then after this, you are completely done with the centerpiece of the monokini. It should look like that, and it looks awesome. And then now we need to begin on the actual bikini cup part. So what I am doing is just chaining out a total of 7. So then once you do that, I'm just going back down the row and placing a simple single crochet in every chain going back to the knot. So I just left in this whole clip in case you needed to watch the whole thing. My other tutorial does kind of go over this as well, but I'm just gonna leave it in. So then once you get to the very last knot where the initial knot is, you are going to do 2 single crochets through the same knot, and after the second, chain 1, go right back into that same knot and place 2 more single crochets. And then once you are finished with that, go back down the opposite side and place a single crochet in every chain until you reach the bottom. So once you are finished with the row, you are going to always chain 1 and flip it over to begin on the next row. And you're going to continue that same exact pattern over and over again until you get the size that you need. I believe I did 12 rows to get my size small, but it really depends, and I would recommend measuring it no matter what, just so you get the size that works the best for you. So once you finish with the first one, just cut it and place a small knot at the end, and then do one more to make the second cup. And then now you are going to attach it to the centerpiece of your monokini, and all I'm doing is you're going to leave the space in between the two cups and then place it on the very first shell closest to the center. So all I'm doing is continuing the same thread that I used to make the second cup, and I am just placing it back to back as if I'm going to sew it together, and all you're doing is placing it in random chains to connect it with a single crochet. So it honestly does not matter which chains you go through as long as you keep it towards the top. So you just continue that all the way until you reach the end of the cup. So then once you reach the very end, you are still going to have part of the cup that does not connect to the centerpiece. So what I'm doing is just continuing the single crochet along the bottom to create a nice edge, and then once you reach the end of the cup, just continue the same thread in a single crochet chain to make the first strap of the bikini. And then at the very ends, just cut them and tie it. And then all you're doing is repeating that same process of attaching the second cup to the shell that's closest to the middle with a single crochet chain all the way along the bottom, and then continuing that same thread to create the second strap. And then all you'll have left to do is tie it to the tops of the bikini cups to create those straps, and then after that you are completely done with this tutorial, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. So I just wanted to quickly say thank you to everyone who's been watching my videos and leaving me really nice comments. You guys are really cool. So if there is any other like crochet tutorials you would want me to make, just let me know in the comments. And thank you so much for watching.